Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Zach's Tech Talk Tuesday. My name is Ryan McQueeney, and on this week's show, we're going to be taking a look at recent M&A trends in the technology sector in the wake of the news that Microsoft is going to be shelling out $7.5 billion worth of stock for open source software platform GitHub. GitHub is one of the world's largest software development platforms, and Microsoft's interest in the company really underscores its desire to return to its software roots and secure a leadership position in what is becoming an open source first software industry. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella noted in a blog post Monday that Microsoft is the most active organization on GitHub and stressed that GitHub's open source model won't change going forward. Nat Friedman, who owns a who serves as the CEO of another Microsoft acquisition, is going to be moving over to take over as GitHub CEO, while GitHub co-founder Chris Wanstrath will join Microsoft as a technical fellow. Apologies if I butchered any names there, but just some moving around in the management team. It's certainly an interesting acquisition for Microsoft, with the company making another serious move just 2 years after closing its largest ever acquisition. Of course, that was LinkedIn in 2016 for $26.2 billion. A huge takeover there. But I think perhaps the most interesting aspect of the GitHub deal is Microsoft's choice to fund the deal entirely in stock, despite holding more than $130 billion in cash. So the amount of cash that tech giants like Microsoft have on hand has been a popular topic of discussion lately, with recent tax reform legislation in the U.S. seemingly providing these companies with an incentive to bring some of that cash back from their offshore tax havens. The next step in that assumption was that tech companies would spark growth by using that newly domestic cash, on some major M&A activity. We haven't necessarily seen that happen yet, with most companies opting to use their tax benefits on share buybacks and special dividends. Still, 2018 looks like it'll be a busy year for tech M&A activity overall after a relatively sluggish 2017. Just looking back last year, really, Cisco's purchase of AppDynamics for $3.7 billion, Verizon's acquisition of Yahoo properties, and Apple purchasing Shazam were really the only deals we talked about much in the sector. Not a super busy year, definitely not a ton of headlines in the M&A space for the technology sector in 2017. Looking at this year, Microsoft's GitHub purchase is looking like the biggest deal so far. There have been a few other major marquee acquisitions that I would like to run through. It's June now, so we're almost halfway through the year. Kind of what have we seen thus far? Notably, and also kind of in this software space, or in this open source space, really, I should say, Adobe has announced its intent to purchase open source e-commerce company Magento in a deal worth around $1.7 billion. Magento helps thousands of retailers and brands through its e-commerce platform and flexible cloud solutions. The thought here is that Magento is going to help the Adobe cloud experience kind of add more customers, or add to its customers' ability to complete transactions by utilizing digital advertisements, kind of further monetizing or adding new features to e-commerce websites that are built around Adobe, and other kind of online customer experiences. I want you to note there, again, open source in this kind of field, larger, broader field that has to deal with transactions, marketing itself towards smaller merchants. In this case, specifically merchants that want to be building their online presence. This is kind of similar to another major deal that I want to talk about this year, which is PayPal's acquisition of Swedish fintech firm iZettle. That happened, it closed for $2.2 billion in May. iZettle is one of these new payments companies, kind of similar to Square, that provides a low-cost point-of-sale option to different types of merchants. In this case, iZettle provides small businesses with a small little card reader, debit card, credit card reader, that just directly links to smartphones and tablets to ease the process of accepting card payments. It also kind of provides reports, like analytical reports and inventory management on the back end for the merchants themselves. You might have seen an iZettle system before. To me, iZettle and its competitors, they're very popular. Places like the farmers market, your local farmers market might be a great example of where you would see this, where once it was an all cash kind of thing, the access to reliable data connection and the expenses involved with setting up a point of sale system kind of on the go like that weren't really worth it for a small business. Now with something like iZettle, you can do that, and the tools that you're getting on the other end, the back end of that, are also beneficial to your business. The reason why I compare this to the Magento acquisition is it's two companies that involve upstart firms to help merchants somewhere in the transaction process, be it in these two cases online or in person. We're seeing a lot of activity in terms of modernizing the small business experience and helping small merchants adapt to new trends. And I think that the fact that two major companies, Adobe and PayPal, coming in and getting exposure to this kind of trend really speaks to what has been going on now for several years that I don't think we've necessarily put a name to yet. But I think it's really interesting how we're really like modernizing and advancing the small business industry here with new technologies. Moving on from there, the final deal that I want to highlight today is Salesforce's roughly $6 billion acquisition of Mulesoft. This is going back directly to the software business, really. Mulesoft designs platforms for connecting applications, data, and devices. The company is really known for its AnyPoint technology, which has been described as a disruptive force within the enterprise software market. It's one of the hotter young domestic software stocks for the past couple years. And in this case, we really saw Salesforce interested in buying Mulesoft in order to bolster its offerings beyond its customer relations cloud software, which really obviously has made its name for. This is what brings me full circle back to the Microsoft GitHub deal, is that it's similar to the Microsoft GitHub acquisition because it's expanding slightly outside of its traditional core business. Again, shifting it back to the Microsoft conversation, it wasn't too long ago that Steve Ballmer was calling open source a quote-unquote cancer to the software business. But Satya Nadella has fully embraced this as part of Microsoft's future, not just with the GitHub deal, with some comments that and some rhetoric that Microsoft has used in the past, but obviously with this GitHub deal really adding this to Microsoft's business model. And I think it's interesting to see that trend of a major software company embracing something that was not previously a major part of its business model. Changing times, obviously the shift away from kind of realizing that the demand for PCs, the PC market had really subsided over the last few years. That put Microsoft in a corner. We've seen it grow its cloud computing offerings. We saw it add LinkedIn. We're now seeing it add GitHub. For one of the iconic brands in the tech sector to be in such a noticeable state of evolution, I think is really fascinating. And then stepping back again and looking at the other trends we talked about in the technology sector in terms of M&A activity this year, a lot of cool, interesting trends to pick up on, at least things that I've noticed. And, as I said, we're in June now, almost halfway through the year. As we get into the second half of 2018, it will be interesting to see whether these trends continue. That does it for us today, though. Short episode, but as a reminder, if you feel that we missed something or if you want us to cover a different story, shoot us an email at podcast@zax.com. Make sure to check out all of our other exclusive audio content at zax.com/podcasts. And remember to subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. We are also now available on Spotify. If that's how you prefer to get your podcast, just search for Zach's Investment Research over there. You'll be able to find all of our shows. As always, thank you for listening to the Zach's Tech Talk Tuesday podcast. We will see you next time.